opening remark. Distinguished participants, esteemed facilitators, moderators, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizers of the All Africa IP Summit, it is my profound pleasure to welcome you all to this special webinar commemorating the African Corporate and Collective Management Day this year, under the theme, Advancing Inclusive Copyright Regime for Africa's Benefits. We are here not only to celebrate a vital part of Africa's creative journey of copyright protection, but also to reaffirm our collective commitment to safeguarding the works of those whose artistry, innovation, and ingenuity enrich our societies, while we envision a future where creativity, innovation, and equitable collective management empower Africa's
Hello, Mr. Benga.
Hello, can you hear me, please?
Can't hear him. We can't hear him.
Okay, am I audible now? Hello, can anyone confirm if I'm audible?
We can hear you, sir. Go on, sir.
All right, thank you. So as I was saying, I said Nigeria Copyright Commission has introduced forward-thinking reforms, including its new copyright law and digital rights management initiatives, which have improved royalty collection for musicians and authors. And also the Audiovisual Rights Society, in partnership with Nigerian Copyright Commission, will be convening a stakeholder workshop this September on the 24th to refine copyright licensing for public performances, uniting rights owners, users, policymakers, and entertainment leaders in one of the continent's most prolific industries. Going to Kenya, the Kenya Music Copyright Society has expanded license networks, ensuring that artistic works now receive fair remuneration for their work. The Copyright Society of Botswana continue to exemplify excellence by honoring the top 10 traditional rights holders through personal visits to the villages and widespread press releases. The society not only celebrates the profound contributions of folklore and traditional works, but also ensures these custodians of cultural heritage receive the recognition and financial rewards they deserve, bridging ancient traditions with modern rights management. Going to South Africa, the creative economy now contributes over 3% to GDP, with CMOs like SAMRO and SAPRA improving transparency and efficiency in royalty distribution. Today, through collective management system, younger artists like Sauti Sol in Kenya and Show Majozi in South Africa are receiving royalties from international streams. This is evidence that Africa's copyright reforms are translating into real benefit for our creators. Going to Uganda, the Copyright Association in Uganda, the Performing Rights Society, is hosting a comprehensive symposium to evaluate the impact of revised Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act of 2006, bringing together regulators, policymakers, enforcement agencies, and community stakeholders. This event is fortifying its operations while promoting collaborative strategies that balance the interest of music creators and users. The Copyright Society of Malawi is spearheading awareness campaign to highlight copyright values. Also, the Zimbabwe Music Rights Copyright Association is amplifying voices through nationwide television interview featuring artists and copyright experts. Namibia Society of Composers and Authors of Music is advancing education with the launch of a national copyright education survey and toolkit, complemented by strategic media engagement. These strategies targeting youth, creators, and the broader public is an initiative that demystifies copyright in the digital age, equipping emerging talents with knowledge to protect and monetize their works amid rising online platforms. These success stories and efforts prove that despite challenges, Africa with enormous potentials in copyright work is increasingly recognized as a vibrant player in the global intellectual property ecosystem. Digital platforms and tech startups across the continent, such as Boomplay in Nigeria, which has expanded to several other African countries like Kenya, Ghana, Tanzania, Cameroon, and Cote d'Ivoire, as well as Dundo in Kenya, are transforming music distribution and royalty management, demonstrating Africa's ability to leapfrog traditional barriers through innovation. This innovative solution shows that Africa is not merely catching up. The continent is setting commendable standards while inspiring the global intellectual property community. As we celebrate this achievement, we must remain conscious of persistent challenges. We must remain conscious of persistent challenges of piracy, uneven enforcement in some regions, and limited awareness of copyright among marginalized groups and grassroots creators. Today's discussion will not only highlight these challenges, but will also chart practical, transparent, and inclusive solutions that ensure every African creator benefits from their intellectual property. Today's webinar is a precursor to the 6th All-African IP Summit coming up between 12th and 14th of November this year in Dakar, Senegal. The summit is not just an event, but a movement of all stakeholders in the Africans project. It is a platform to co-learn, co-create, and promote collaborations that ensures that IP system work for the benefit of Africa and Africans. As we proceed in this webinar today, we must all be inspired by the resilience of creativity that define our continent. Let today's deliberations spark collaborations, policy reforms, and innovation that will shape a fairer and a more inclusive copyright future for Africa. On behalf of the organizers of this webinar and our valued partners, I extend deep appreciation to our distinguished facilitators, moderators, and all participants joining us from across Africa and beyond. Your commitment to advancing an inclusive copyright regime reflects the shared belief that our stories, music, films, designs, and innovations are powerful tools to promote economic growth and cultural identity. Once again, welcome to Africa Copyright and Collective Management Day 2025. Together, let us advance a copyright regime that truly benefits Africa's creators, economies, and generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gwenga, for the remarkable opening remark. You have given like an overview of what today's webinar is about. We'll call on Mr. Jean-Pierre to help us with the translation for our audience from French-speaking countries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chiamaka. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Et donc, je m'adresse au public que nous avons, qui est d'expression francophone. Je vais tout de suite procéder donc à la traduction du discours d'ouverture qui a été fait par M. Olubenga, donc le représentant du président du comité d'organisation du sommet de l'Afrique. Donc, distingués participants, chers facilitateurs, modérateurs, mesdames et messieurs, c'est donc avec un ineffable plaisir que M. Olubenga, au nom du comité d'organisation, vous souhaite la bienvenue à ce webinaire spécial consacré à la Journée africaine du droit d'auteur et de la gestion collective, édition 2025. Une journée d'ailleurs qui est placée sous le thème « Promouvoir un régime de droit d'auteur inclusif au bénéfice de l'Afrique ». Nous sommes réunis non seulement pour célébrer une étape importante du parcours créatif africain, mais aussi pour réaffirmer notre engagement à protéger les œuvres de ceux dont le talent et l'ingéniosité enrichissent nos sociétés. L'exemple du musicien nigérian King Sunny Ade, qui a remporté une victoire judiciaire historique en 2015 contre l'utilisation non autorisée de ses enregistrements, illustre bien la puissance du droit d'auteur pour défendre les créateurs et ouvrir la voie à de nouvelles générations d'artistes africains. Partout sur le continent, des avancées significatives sont réalisées. Réforme juridique au Nigeria, extension des réseaux de licences au Kenya, valorisation des détenteurs de droits traditionnels au Botswana, transparence accrue en Afrique du Sud, ou encore initiative en Ouganda, au Rwanda, au Malawi, au Zimbabwe, à l'île Maurice et en Namibie. Ces efforts montrent que l'Afrique est désormais un acteur crédible dans l'écosystème mondial de la propriété intellectuelle, grâce notamment aux innovations numériques qui révolutionnent la distribution et la rémunération des artistes. Bien sûr, des défis demeurent. La piraterie, entre autres, l'application inégale des règles ou sensibilisation encore insuffisante. Mais nos échanges aujourd'hui visent justement à réfléchir à des solutions inclusives et durables pour que chaque créateur africain bénéficie pleinement de ces droits. Ce webinaire s'inscrit aussi dans la préparation du 6e sommet panafricain de la propriété intellectuelle qui se tiendra en novembre prochain à Dakar. Un rendez-vous qui se veut plus qu'un événement, mais davantage une véritable plateforme de co-création et de collaboration pour un système de pays au service de l'Afrique et des Africains. Nous vous remercions, encore une fois, tout le comité d'organisation, sincèrement, pour votre présence et votre engagement. Nous sommes convaincus qu'ensemble, nous ferons en sorte que les histoires, nos musiques, nos films et nos innovations deviennent évidemment des leviers de croissance économique et de valorisation de notre identité culturelle. Encore une fois, bienvenue à cette journée africaine du droit d'auteur et de la gestion collective 2025. Je vous remercie. Chiamaka, you can proceed. I am done with the translation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jean-Pierre. Merci. Thank you very much for the translation. So we'll have to move forward to our first presenter for today. And our first presenter for today is Mr. Joseph Wamfi. And he's going to be taking us on the topic Digital Transformation and Collective Management in Africa, the case of Copy Ghana. So Mr. Joseph Wamfi is the Executive Director of Ghana, where he leads the initiating corporate administration and promote fair access to digital and resources in Ghana. He is a dynamic professional with over a decade of experience advancing the literary, publishing, and copyright industries. He has proven expertise in copyright administration, project management, business development, public relations, and innovation management, with a strong track record of leading teams, driving advocacy initiatives, and fostering impactful community engagement. Prior to joining Copy Ghana, Joseph served as Assistant Executive Secretary of the Ghana Publishers Association, GPA, where he oversaw projects and programs and later acted as Executive Secretary from 2016 to 2018. Joseph holds a Bachelor of Arts in Publishing Studies and an MSc in Strategic Management and Leadership from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, as well as a master's degree in Intellectual Property Rights from African Universities in Zimbabwe. Please, can you help me welcome? Let's welcome Mr. Joseph Wamfi. Our first.
Thanks, Ms. Chiamaka, for, I think you tried with my second name, but I may have to correct you a bit. It's Jemfi and not Wamfi. So I would also want to greet all colleagues here present on this call. And it's an honor to be given this platform to share a field that I know about collective licensing, specifically with the text and image sector. Can I share my screen, or you'd want to do that? Because I've done a bit of update on the presentation I sent you. So if it's possible, can I control it from my end? Hello? Am I able, please?
We can hear you. We can hear you, sir. So you said you've adjusted it.
I would want to control my slides from here.
Okay, you can go on, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. So, right, so just a jiffy. Great. It's my screen. Can anyone confirm if I have been able to share?
It's on. Your screen is on.
Thank you. So I think a lot has been said about me already, so I wouldn't bore you. My name is Joseph Bafo-Jemfi. I'm the Executive Director for Copy Ghana. I think I have 10 minutes to talk about successful digital transformation of African CMOs. So I would permit me to rush through so that I can be able to finish the presentation before the time. And hopefully afterwards, I can be able to take a few questions if there are any. So straight away, I would want us to look at the basics of copyright and why the need for collective licensing. So this is not the time for us to define copyright, but let's look at, what makes copyright even relevant. So copyright in itself gives an exclusive right to reproduce or make available or communicate a work to the public, and also to distribute such works to the public. However, it is not always the case that this exclusive right that is vested in the hands of the right holder can apply, especially in circumstances where it's difficult for you to get permissions from this right holder to be able to use a portion of such rights. So copyright, just as any other IP form, also makes some provisions for the public good. So in instances where it is difficult for such rights to be taken from these rights holders, or via permissions, or by requesting that they grant you that access to their works, then collective management steps in to provide that kind of solution. So copyright provides exceptions or limitations to exclusive rights. So certain special cases, it is allowed that without the explicit authorization of the rights holder, a user can use portions of the work. But in the Berne Convention, which is the mother of all copyright laws, certain standards are set, what we call the three-step test. So for exceptions or limitations to occur, it should happen on certain special cases. That is one. It should not conflict with the normal exploitation of the work, and then it should not unreasonably prejudice the legitimate interest of the right holder. So in every instance of copying, you have to cumulatively meet all these tests before we can classify what you are doing as an exception or limitation. So you can pass the first two. If you fail one, it's as if you have failed all. That's how it works. So this creates the opportunity for CMOs to operate, in that it is always difficult to get the right word, especially in an educational setting where lecturers rely on a lot of copyright protected works for their teaching and learning resources. It is difficult for a lecturer to, in the course of lecturing, pause and go to find a copyright owner to seek clearance before he can make copies of the work or to students to learn from. Or let's say a broadcasting organization, with the music and the audiovisual sector, it is difficult for an FM station or a TV broadcasting station to, at every point that they would want to use a copyright protected work as content, move around finding the individual right holders to seek clearance before they can use. So collective licensing facilitates the duality concept of copyright, in that it brings a balancing act between exclusive rights and the limitations. So whereas right owners own exclusive rights and there are limitations, collective right organization acting as middleman organization, seeks interests of both parties by negotiating, the clearance of, this right in bulk to users so that they would not need to contact individual rights holders to be able to access such rights. So basically, that's how it is. When you look at the framework of the publishing market, you see that there is a primary market, there is a secondary market. Primary market is what these right holders are able to do on their individual basis. But when it moves to the stage where there is supposed to be a collective licensing organization, then it moves into the secondary market. And then exceptions and limitations are also, considered in this whole framework of the ecosystem. Now, let's look at sectors that require CMO licenses. We have education. This, for the purpose of this presentation, I'll limit myself mostly to the text and image sector, even though there is music collective management organizations, and then there are also audiovisual collective management. So bear with me on that. So there are education, schools, universities, further education, distance education, libraries, public administration, that's government, regional, local, and trade and industry, religious bodies, cultural institutions, media monitoring companies, and copy shops. So these organizations always rely on the use of copyright protected materials in a way that it is always difficult for them to negotiate individual, licenses with right holders. So they rely on collective management organizations to be able to achieve this. Now, how does CMOs ought to operate? This is a trust-based industry. So for a CMO to thrive, it has to demonstrate, certain qualities. And I have tried to enumerate a couple of them here. You ought to deliberately build an image and earn a reputation based on how you do your things, your corporate culture, management, product, services, public image, social responsibility, successes, etc. How you put all this thing together helps to give you that kind of, edge to thrive in whatever market you find yourself in. Now, let's look at the typical process of a collective management organization, the work processes. So, one, CMOs such as Copy Ghana will negotiate with the institutions to give them that license to use, copyright protected materials for the furtherance of their operations. And we also collect money, that is the royalties in the form of fees that we collect from these institutions. And not only that, we also collect data. Data is very essential for CMO operations because that helps you to be able to do equitable distribution. So after collecting money and data, we process the data, and then we distribute the monies collected in the form of royalties to right holders based on the analysis of the data we hold. Now, let's look at the digital reproduction or reuses. What are the instances that will warrant that CMOs issue digital licenses to institutions? Every CMO has the right to only allow excerpts of a copyrighted protected work. In our case, text and image-based works. It could be music for the music CMOs and movies for the audiovisual. You only allow for the copying of excerpts of the work, especially in our case. Let me limit it to the text and image sector. So CMOs such as Copy Ghana cannot allow an institution to copy 100% of an entire book, for instance, or an article, but then, excerpts. So in Copy Ghana, we have 15% maximum of several books. So a university lecturer can be able to copy about 15% of about 4 books and put it together into a course pack for students to use to learn or study and pass the exams. That is allowed. But copying 100% of the book is not allowed. We don't have the power to do that. So digital reuse or reproduction occur in scanning, digitization, printout from digital sources, internet reproduction or copying, downloads, storing information on databases, making available on intranet. These institutions have learning management platforms that students go on to learn all of that. So sharing such data on such intranet platforms, would warrant that you take a license. If you project this works on an interactive smart board, that also requires some form of a collective license in this regard. Now, the issue of blockchain at some point was seen as a a breakthrough in ensuring that such digital rights are easily managed. Of course, this is a shared, immutable, decentralized digital ledger that allows that people can put their copyright protected works on there, and then these works are uploaded and then they are transformed into blockchains, so that it provides a transparent and immutable records, and it's also useful for tracking ownership and automating royalty payments. So the framework that you see briefly describes how the blockchain system works. We have a copyright owner here who has registered on the platform. He's giving distribute keys, and you see, so these works are uploaded in the digital formats, and the copyright is also uploaded. So this is what goes into the blockchain. And then this is a buyer, copyright buyer here. He also registers, and yes, there is a transaction using rich signatures algorithm to create transaction here. So these transactions are uploaded here, and then is verified, and then the copyright owner gets paid. Quite, a complex framework for non-tech people like myself, but that is how it works. And since it came into being in the 90s, it was seen as a very, very unique solution to a problem that we're envisaging. That is to ensure that there is easy operation of sales of copyright protected materials online and all of that. In 2008, it gained popularity, but for one or two reasons, scalability has not been achieved. This has not been able to be adopted on a large scale because of the technical nature of the whole arrangement. Most of these copyright owners don't want to bother themselves with thinking about such a very complicated system of trading their copyrighted works online. So that is one of the reasons on certain legal weight of the whole arrangement. These are not really backed by any legal framework. So when you operate on such platforms, it's as if you are operating on the Wild West. You are not sure of what will happen tomorrow or the next day. So all these things, and then the dependence on accuracy of off-chain data. So some of these data are done offline. So it's difficult to be able to sort of vouch for its credibility. And then technical and economic barriers. All these have restricted the ability to use blockchain to solve the problem of how digital copyrighted works will be used online, and then owners can easily be identified and be paid. But that said, this is a very good process that we can all look into further and see how it could help us. So let's also look at some of the digital licensing processes that are adopted in other parts of the world, other than the use of the blockchain to manage such digital rights. So I have a couple of very very advanced collective licensing organization, especially in that area, to cite some of the things they do as example. So we have the Copyright Licensing Agency of UK, which has a digital content store online. So what it does is that, as I said earlier, CMOs, RROs, we rely on data. Metadata is very essential in all that we do. So identifiers like ISBN, International Standard Book Numbers, international, what do you call it? Standard serial numbers, and then easily National Standard Name Identifiers and all of that. These are very key data that we use to be able to operate. So CLA and Copynote, CLA is Collective Licensing Agency of UK. They have developed a digital content store. What it does is that if any institution in UK, for instance, copies something online, a text for a particular course, they have a platform that the institution can just go in there, upload what they copied, the course they are copying for, and then all this metadata about this work. And then they can then use it. So by so doing, they are creating that digital content store. At the same time, they are collecting usage reports from these universities and educational institutions, the license. So in the next year, if the institution would want to use the same copied material, they don't need to go through the process, reinvent the wheel of copying the thing again. Now the digital content store is available for them to access the works. So that's how it works. It's a similar thing that is done by copying or what they call the bulk. It's unfortunate in Africa, we have not developed our CMOs to that level, especially the RROs, the reproduction rights organizations. So you could see that I've been interchanging the terms CMO and RROs. These are the same organizations, but in the text and image sector, CMOs are known as RROs, that's reproduction rights organizations. So that's why I've been using that term more. So that's how their systems are developed to operate. In Africa, we don't have, that structured data system to be able to help us to navigate some of these things. We are trying to do something. I think recently in July 1, at our meeting, the African Committee of RROs, a meeting in Rabat, Morocco, we were able to come together to sign what we call the African Multi-Party Repertoire Exchange Agreement. So we are trying to put all our repertoires together. It falls in line with the economic integration of the African Union. So we are trying to put together all the content that is available on the continent together so that each RRO in every country in Africa is strengthened with a huge data base of works to be able to license this to institutions that may want such licenses. We are trying to also put our things together, in future also think about probably doing a content store like CLA has, and then be able to get all these things in place to be able to function effectively and provide the kind of services that we need. But in the absence of this, or as this is developing, in our own small ways, we are doing digital licensing. For instance, Copy Ghana, in our licensing agreement, we allow that, tests are copied up to the limits that we would specify. And then when you do that too, we do, data, collection of usage reports. So every year we collect data on how and what kind of works are used. And then based on that, we structure our distribution of royalties. So how do we collect the data? I think one example is also with CLAS, the Copyright Licensing Society of Singapore. So they have developed sophisticated mechanisms to be able to collect such data. The use of barcode reading, that is when you use a book, you just scan the barcode and then automatically all the metadata around the book is transmitted to them in their system. And they are able to determine at the end of the year whose book is used and deserves what royalty. So that's the little I would say. It's quite a complex, terrain for us now, those of us in Africa. But we
Mr. Joseph, we have 2 minutes to conclude.
Yes, we are doing our best to get that in place. Now, my last slide is with the generative AI, TDM, and copyright license. There is a lot of international lawsuits now in place. This is an area that it's fledgling and is their large language models. After this trading, this data is analyzed to recognize patterns and connections, and then new contents are generated. The simple framework tells us that the raw material that is used to ensure this process thrives is people's copyright protected works. And Therefore, there is a need for some form of licensing to occur in this area as well. So in other parts of the world, we are learning from them. I mean, USA, CCC is a collective copyright clearance center. They also offer internal use rights. That's for AI organizations are able to take licenses to generate prompts that will help them to summarize data, especially in pharmaceutical industry. If they want to come up with a new antidote, and they would have to summarize a huge data of copyright protected works. They take licenses from CCC, USA, CLE, UK, Copyright Agency Australia to be able to do that. We're also looking at licensing external uses of AI systems. That is the training of, the large language models with copyright protected materials. This is where a lot of the legal contention is, but hopefully as the cases go on, we'll be able to know the way forward. So Africa, we have a lot to learn, but that said, we are still, following what is happening globally to see how we can also adjust ourselves. But data is very essential. We need, to create data, structures so that it is easier for you to get access to data and be able to operate. Without that, CMOs would find problems. So I would end here, quite a short period. I had to rush and crash everything. But thank you for listening, and I'll be standing by for any questions that may come up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph, for the interesting presentation. Thank you very much. It's nice to know what you're doing at Copy Ghana. And we are sure that the rest of Africa has one or two leaves to borrow from Copy Ghana. And then, as you said, we are a long way, and we have a lot of ground to cover as African countries. Please, I just want to inform us, if you have any question for Mr. Joseph or any of the presenters, you can drop your questions on the chat box or the Q&A session, and we are going to answer the questions. The questions will be taken after all the speakers have presented. So we are going to call on Mr. Jumper to translate a lot of information, but as much as he can, he will translate the presentation of Mr. Joseph. Thank you, Mr. Jumper. Over to you.
OK, thank you, Chiamaka. Alors, je vais procéder à la traduction donc, de la présentation du premier intervenant, qui était Monsieur Joseph Bafour Diamsi, qui est le directeur exécutif de l'organisme de gestion collective Copyright Ghana, et qui nous a fait donc une présentation assez exhaustive sur la thématique, sur le thème « Faire progresser un régime de droit d'auteur ». Yes, is there an issue? Okay. Donc, il nous a fait une présentation exhaustive sur la thématique « Faire progresser un régime de droit d'auteur inclusif pour l'Afrique à travers la transformation numérique des organismes de gestion collective ». Donc, la présentation de M. Joseph Diamsi a mis en avant l'objectif principal de bâtir un régime de droit d'auteur inclusif en Afrique en s'appuyant bien évidemment sur la transformation numérique des organismes de gestion collective. L'enjeu central était de trouver un équilibre. Selon lui, l'enjeu central est de trouver un équilibre entre les droits exclusifs des créateurs et les limitations nécessaires pour garantir l'accès, l'innovation et le développement dans l'ère numérique. Il a rappelé fort à propos les bases du droit d'auteur qui sont de façon non exhaustive, donc le principe de l'exclusivité des droits, les exceptions sur le droit d'auteur et bien évidemment la propriété ou du moins les licences collectives en matière de droit d'auteur. Mais il a également montré comment de nombreux secteurs, parmi lesquels l'éducation, l'administration publique, les commerces, les industries culturelles et créatives, pouvaient bénéficier d'une gestion collective efficace. Un point clé qu'il a souligné concerne la confiance et la réputation des organismes de gestion collective qui doivent se construire sur la transparence, la bonne gouvernance, et évidemment des services crédibles offerts à leurs membres qui sont donc les artistes et tous ceux qui sont qui manipulent donc en fait du droit d'auteur. Selon lui, également, la transformation numérique offre des solutions concrètes et il en a énuméré quelques-unes, notamment des plateformes de licence en ligne, des utilisations de métadonnées, mais surtout l'utilisation de la blockchain, qui est une technologie relativement ancienne, mais également révolutionnaire, qui permet de consolider la traçabilité et la conservation des œuvres. Enfin, il a présenté de nouveau les défis qui sont posés par de nouvelles technologies telles que l'IA générative et évidemment tous les risques que cela comporte, notamment le text and data mining, c'est-à-dire le processus d'entraînement des IA avec des œuvres qui sont protégées par le droit d'auteur. Il a donc souligné la nécessité d'adapter le droit d'auteur à ces évolutions. Et enfin, en conclusion, il a lancé un appel clair qui est celui de renforcer les organismes de gestion collective, de moderniser leurs outils numériques et de promouvoir un droit d'auteur inclusif qui, pour lui, sont des leviers indispensables pour soutenir la créativité, l'accès à la connaissance et la croissance des industries culturelles en Afrique. Donc, et ceci étant dit, on va donc passer à la deuxième présentation. So, Chiamaka, you can go on with the second presenter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jumper. Merci. I hope my French is correct.
Flawless.
Thank you. So we'll be introducing our next speaker, Mr. David Jeng, and he's going to be taking us on the topic strengthening copyright frameworks to support African creators. So Mr. David Jeng is a seasoned international expert in innovation and entrepreneurship with 12 years experience empowering youth and entrepreneurs across Africa. His work spans business development, policy formulation, investment, access to finance, digital economy, intellectual property, and incubation. He has trained and supported more than 10,000 entrepreneurs in over 15 countries and consulted for prestigious global organizations, including WIPO, International Trade Center, UNDP, the EU, and the World Bank. His academic background includes bachelor's in marketing and finance from University of the Gambia and a master's in intellectual property from African University in Zambia, with a focus on trademark exploitation by agricultural SMEs. David's professional development is extensive, featuring advanced training at Harvard School and European Patent Office, alongside certifications in creative intelligence, behavioral entrepreneurship, design thinking, and SME coaching. He currently leads Chapman Express Financial Services Limited as Managing Director and Bliss Executives as Founder and Managing Consultant. His leadership extends to board roles in the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Gambia Youth Chamber of Commerce, and the President's International Award Scheme. Regionally, he contributes as Strategic Chair of the Next Asian Forum Community of Scientists Executive and a founding member of my AFCFTA, reflecting his commitment to continental innovation and economic integration. What a robust profile you have, Mr. Jeng. Please help me make welcome Mr. Jeng for his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chiamaka. Thank you very much to the All Africa IP Summit, and everyone that has joined us across the world for this important gathering. The topic that we are looking at basically is how do we really, advance inclusive copyright regimes in Africa, but mainly focusing on how do we, strengthen it. Now, copyright basically is an integral component of the creative industry, and we know that Africa, in general, our creative industry is one that we can rely on as a continent. And you've mentioned something within my profile that deals with the AFCFTA, and we now know that the potential of AFCFTA, the creative industry, is the one industry that can harness and benefit this agreement extensively. And looking at it, it has a value chain, and its value chain involves, creating of, publishing works by creators and inventors and innovators. That's one of the first components of his value chain. The other one is the use in terms of its distribution, and this is where the CMOs play a key role. Then we also have the broadcasting agencies, people who will broadcast it, and they either liaise with the CMOs in most cases or the creators to be able to get the word out there through different mediums, whether digital or broadcasting mediums. And the last component of the value chain deals with the consumption, where users use this IP. So this value chain is very important for us to understand. The other aspect of another important work of CMOs, I'm very happy that Joseph from Ghana touched that very well, which looks at what CMO does, which is, broken down in most cases in 4 different components. The first one is the documentation, because this is where creators bring their work to the CMOs, and the CMOs would their work base or any infrastructure that they have. Some will do it, physically, others will do it through digital means. Then comes the licensing, where the CMO licensing this technology to other people so that they can use, and the other third component is the collection, which is a key role of every CMO, like these royalties on behalf of the artists and the creators. Once they collect it, the CMO brings that money together, brings those royalties together, and then they will now distribute these royalties across the creators. This has been a very important component to encourage creators to be able to create more, because they are now reaping their benefits from their creation. Now, my brother also mentioned the issue of the Berne Convention, which the Berne Convention enables creators to benefit from their work throughout their life, and then 50 years after their demise. So this also helps creators and their estates to be able to gain benefits from copyright and literary work. Another important component that CMOs will facilitate and ensure that these people who are creating gain benefits from their creators. A couple of years ago, CISAC, did a very important studies of, annual revenues that have been generated. I think this was in, 2016 or so, which, shows that 15 billion US dollars have been collected annually, through CMOs for creators. Now, one thing, that was very shocking about the statistics is that 10% is done digitally, which I believe also is quite a small number, looking at, how we're going and how people are consuming works. Today, if you look at it, most of the creation or most of the creative works that we consume digitally, either through our phones, our computers, or other digital means, which shows you that there's a very big effort that is required from CMOs to be able to collect works digitally, and this comes into play by ensuring that they are very much strengthened to be able to do that, and it's not going to be business as usual for CMOs, because what takes them to be able to move up to par and move up to speed is by ensuring that they're able to do their works from a digital perspective. So if you look at today, collective management societies across Africa, in most cases, they're very much insufficiently funded. But if you look at it, even though they're so much insufficiently funded, on the other hand, there's excessive regulation onto them. governments and institutions and, IP office or stakeholders, they constantly, excessively regulate them because they control what belongs to the creators, not them. So in helping them to be able to, really deliver on their mandate is by ensuring that, there are very pertinent issues that has to be addressed. And these issues also help in strengthening them to be able to do. Now, one of them is by ensuring that these royalties are collected and distributed effectively among artists, not only effectively, but also transparently. If you look at, for example, my country, the Gambia, we have a CMO that is existing by law, but in reality, the operationalization of that CMO has become a challenge in many times. So this ensures that most artists now in the Gambia, their primary source of revenue is events. Is through events and endorsements, but not through the CMO. So people are playing their musics even digitally and even at events, even in hotels and other places, but you realize that they're not reaping revenue from that. So in terms of also distribution, there's also limited revenue in terms of distribution. Another example I want to give is also a Sierra Leone, which is also another interesting case because they also have very good laws. But you realize that also operationalization of CMOs becomes a challenge. So even big artists like Emerson and others, they're still not being able to gain benefits from their work within Sierra Leone through these royalties. So there are some countries that have very good laws in terms of strengthening the work of CMOs by even allowing private CMOs to be established, which is a very key component because you realize that if there are private CMOs, it encourages competition. And once there is competition, there's effectiveness. Artists can either use the national CMOs to distribute their work or use private CMOs who are very, very much business-minded in ensuring that royalties are collected and distributed accordingly. So what thing we also have to ensure is the issue of enforcement. And I'll give a case in the Gambia, for example. We've had issues of enforcement, but you realize that because of it's a small community, we have one of our big artists who, there was people infringing on his copyright. When we took the matter, we were about to take the matter to court. The same artist himself came back and said, no, just leave them because these people, they are my fans. I just realized that I'm related to one person out of them. So this shows you that enforcement also becomes a very huge challenge in some societies because people will be afraid that the enforcement can come to them at a bad can bring bad aspects to their reputation. So you realize that for IP systems to really proceed in terms of copyright, enforcement becomes key. Another aspect that also helps in terms of strengthening the relationship between stakeholders is building a robust and a friendly relationship between CMO organizations and tax authorities, because they are collecting money, and in most cases tax authorities tend to be part of it. And we've seen, Nigeria has done very well with COSON. COSON has done also a good job. We've seen over the years they've collected, over 200 million US dollars. South Africa also have been seen as also a very good example, not only because of what they collect, but because of their high distribution and their involvement in technology in the process. So there's a huge need to involve technology within the process. And I think this is one way in which we can really strengthen these systems and build trust. And the adoption of technology is not just for collection, but even for administration and payments. If you look at now globally, there's a lot of payment systems that are available, and these payment systems can able to now enable users of these creations to be able to pay royalties through that, but also it enables artists and creators to be able to get their royalties through these payment systems which will build a huge level of transparency. And I believe once there's transparency, there's a huge aspect in strengthening the relationship with the stakeholders in the ecosystem. The other platform that I see that is very useful, which is the WIPO Connect, which is a very good CMO platform that WIPO has built and some offices are using. And with this WIPO Connect, it has modules that are very transparent, and the technology is very good. That is helping not only the CMO office, but also the creators who will benefit their work. So to end, I know the time is short, but to end, I just want to say that, is very important that stakeholders come together. And what I have seen across my work across Africa is that stakeholders are talking because there's always stakeholder collaborations, but stakeholders are not collaborating. We'll come through a seminar, a workshop, or a meeting like this. We will talk, but we will move out of that place, but we will not collaborate. So you realize that this has been affecting a lot of industries in terms of creativity and in terms of the CMOs. So it is the collective responsibility of all stakeholders to support the music industry, the creative industry, which possesses an immense potential for growth, for export, and for investment opportunities. And through this collaboration, I believe that all stakeholders will bring what they have on the table, and once they bring what they have on the table, it will effectively develop the CMOs and the creative industry so that all creators will be able to benefit. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Thank you for the insightful presentation. As you said, we are doing a lot of talking, but how are we collaborating? That's the big question. It's not just to talk, but to collaborate. So while I give room for Mr. Jean-Pierre to do the translation before I call the next speaker. If you have any questions for Mr. David, please drop it on the chat box or the Q&A. We'll pick it up and then ask him as we go on. Mr. Jean-Pierre.
OK, thank you, Chamaka. Alors, nous venons d'avoir la présentation de Monsieur David Jeng, qui est donc le fondateur du cabinet Bliss Executive, donc qui est basé en Gambie, et qui nous a fait une présentation sur le renforcement du cadre légal du droit d'auteur au bénéfice, évidemment, des créateurs africains. Donc, Monsieur Jeng, David Jeng, a commencé son propos en rappelant que l'Afrique regorge de nombreuses a une industrie culturelle qui est assez forte, en tout cas en termes de production culturelle, et qu'on retrouve effectivement, que ce soit dans le domaine de l'art, la littérature, de l'artisanat, qu'on retrouve effectivement beaucoup de créateurs, et que effectivement cette richesse de l'art et de l'artisanat, de la culture africaine, a amené la ZLECA justement à s'intéresser à cet aspect crucial du droit de propriété intellectuelle. Il a également relevé que les industries culturelles et créatives fonctionnent dans la logique de la chaîne de valeur, que ce soit dans la production, comme par exemple tous ceux qui sont auteurs, que ce soit dans la distribution et que ce soit effectivement même dans la commercialisation à travers notamment dans l'industrie du livre ou alors dans l'industrie de la musique, tous les labels que nous pouvons avoir. Mais il a constaté également que, effectivement, les OGC font un travail remarquable justement pour assurer la cohésion et le renforcement de cette chaîne de valeur-là, parce que les OGC ont un rôle à la fois de représentation donc de ces artistes-là dans leur domaine de compétences, le domaine de compétences qui leur est dévolu, mais également et surtout que les OGC, au-delà de ce travail de représentation, se doivent donc de percevoir les royalties, donc les droits d'auteur de tous les artistes, et de les distribuer de façon équitable. Et il a relevé que effectivement, lorsqu'on se regarde, quelques statistiques qui sont données justement relèvent qu'il y a énormément de royalties, environ 60 milliards, il a parlé de 60 milliards de royalties, qui sont collectées à travers les OGC. sur l'étendue du continent, en Afrique donc, et qui sont reversés à tous ces auteurs et créateurs-là. Mais que malheureusement, uniquement 10% de ces donc, royalties qui sont reversées proviennent du digital. Et il fait donc un appel à une adaptation massive du digital par les organismes de gestion collective qui doivent donc arrimer à la technologie, à la modernité, que ce soit dans le processus de collecte et de distribution des royalties, mais également dans les stratégies, on va dire, de captation de ces royalties-là, en s'intéressant notamment aux plateformes de streaming que l'on retrouve un peu partout. Il a également mentionné un certain nombre de problèmes qui minent les organismes de gestion collective, parmi lesquels il a d'ailleurs mentionné, par exemple, la forte pression institutionnelle qui pèse sur les organismes de gestion collective, puisque à la fois l'État, à la fois les artistes en eux-mêmes, mais également les offices de propriété intellectuelle ont un contrôle, ont un regard qui est assez marqué, parfois une tutelle assez marquée au niveau des OGC, ce qui peut paralyser notamment leurs initiatives. C'est pourquoi il a encouragé une libéralisation du secteur, donc en encourageant la création des OGC par le secteur privé, mais également de pouvoir développer des plateformes de collaboration, de communication entre les OGC pour que les bonnes pratiques puissent être suivies. Et il a d'ailleurs pris l'exemple du WIPO Connect, donc qui est une plateforme collaborative qui est animée par l'OMPI et qui permet justement aux créateurs et en tout cas à tous les acteurs des industries créatives de pouvoir parler d'une seule fois pour pouvoir défendre leurs intérêts. Donc voilà, si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez les poser à la fin du chat. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Chiamaka. You can go on with the third presenters.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Jean-Pierre. So while Mr. David spoke about collaboration, it's a good time to make welcome our next speaker, and she's going to be taking the topic Regional Collaboration for Harmonized Copyright Policies in Africa. So our next presenter is Mrs. Linda Alfels. Ms. Linda Alfels is a legal practitioner and a researcher. She studied at the prestigious University of Lagos, where she obtained a Bachelor of Laws and proceeded to obtain a Master of Laws from the same university. She's very passionate about intellectual property organization, copyright investing, intellectual property lawyer with over 15 years experience in the field and a plethora of successful copyright infringement cases. She has a passion for teaching and imparting knowledge. She has several published articles on various subjects pertaining to intellectual property. She has been featured on many occasions on panels discussing various subject matter concerning intellectual property development in Africa, particularly the area of copyrights. Her knowledge of copyright has given her the opportunity to appear on various platforms nationally and internationally. Most recently, she represented Nigeria as a subject matter expert in the 45th section of the Standing Committee on Copyright and Related Rights in Geneva. She currently works with the Nigerian Copyright Commission as a director and head of the Lagos office. It's my honor to make welcome Mrs. Linda Alfels as our third speaker for today. Welcome, ma.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me quickly say a big thank you to the organizers of this webinar for granting me this opportunity. Please kindly permit me to share my slide so that I can run through my slide. While I'm trying to share my slide, I want to just remind us of this popular saying. I want to say African saying that says, united we stand, divided we fall. And there's this second one that says, a three-fold cord cannot be easily broken. That actually forms the basis of my discussion this afternoon. Talking about regional collaboration for harmonized copyright policy for Africa. Now, before I run through my slide, also by way of introduction, I will give us this image of a bunch of brooms. If you pick up a bunch of brooms and you try to break it, you will find that it is practically impossible for you to break the bunch of brooms. But if you take a single stick of brooms from there, you will discover that you can easily break it. That is why it is imperative that in Africa, we must collaborate to develop a harmonized copyright policy for us in Africa. Now, that takes me to my slide. What is important?
Okay,
Why is this important
can you put
for
your
us?
slide on presenters mode so that we'll be able to go along with you?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, let me put my slide on presenters mode. So that, okay, I thought it was already showing. Can you see my slide now? Can you see my slide now?
Okay, yes,
Hello?
yes, can go on.
We can
Yeah,
see
can you,
it.
okay,
We can
okay,
see it.
okay, thank you very much. Okay, so my slide is showing now. So I've already spoken about my introduction, talking about a three-fold cord that cannot be easily broken. So I go right on to my introduction, to my slide. I'm talking about the importance of harmonization. Haven't told us, given us a scenario of a bunch of brooms that cannot be easily broken. Now I'm looking at the importance of harmonization for Africa. The first thing we must note is that Africa has a rich and diverse creative industry, which plays a very important role in shaping our economy and also our culture. In fact, this rich, diverse culture is what identifies us as Africans. So we must do everything possible for this industry to grow. In recent times, we have heard of African artists who go abroad, who travel to America, United States of America, UK, Europe, and they are making waves there. Our culture is very rich, so we must do everything possible for this creative industry to grow. So one of the things we must do is harmonization. We must harmonize our copyright policies so that this industry will be well protected. Now that also shows that we also know that lack of uniformity in copyright laws across the continent is a major hindrance to our growth. If we cannot, we find it difficult to come together, to work together, then we are like the piece of broom that is picked up from a bunch and easily broken. We must collaborate in order for this industry to grow. Another reason why it is important for us to collaborate is that collaboration has a positive effect in the enforcement and exploitation of our copyright laws. We must take note that when we collaborate, it becomes important and easier for us to grow this industry, which is actually very key in shaping our economy. Now, this collaboration we're talking about also has challenges. Part of the challenges we face in talking about collaboration is that different national laws, differences in our national laws creates challenges in enforcement of our laws. If in Ghana, for example, copyright works for music, for example, is protected for just 10 years, and in Nigeria it is protected for 15 years, that becomes a challenge in terms of enforcement. How do you protect Ghanaian works in Nigeria? How do you protect Nigerian works in Ghana? So these are challenges. If we have differences in our laws, it will create a very big challenge for us that will stifle the creative industry in Africa. Another challenge we face is the widespread of piracy. We know that especially now that most copyright works and intellectual property works are being exploited on the online space without loss of quality. It becomes so easy for these works to be reproduced on the online space without loss of its original quality. So because of that, piracy has spread so much. These are challenges that we must come together with harmonized policies in order for us to be able to curb these challenges. Another challenge we face is lack of cooperation in the region, which is affecting our collective bargaining power. If there's no collaboration among us, if we cannot come together and speak as a voice and have the same standards in the protection of our IP, it will reduce our bargaining power. It means we'll not be able to bargain. People can come from outside and pick up our works and pay little or nothing for them. So lack of collaboration is a major challenge in our collective bargaining power. We also have issues like a limited capacity of copyright administration and enforcement. We must come together in order to tackle limited capacity, where each person, we are fragmented and everybody is trying to fight their own battles. Everybody is trying to protect their own copyright laws or trademark laws, and we cannot come together. This fragmentation will make it more difficult for us to develop capacity, both human and mechanical capacity, in order to be able to protect our copyright and IP works. Then, okay, one of the major challenges we face also is lack of awareness. One of the things I've discovered in the course of my work is that a lot of people do not have copyright knowledge. Even the creatives, the owners of copyright, do not have much knowledge of what copyright does for them, how they can utilize their works, how they can benefit from their works. This lack of knowledge creates a kind of hindrance from people from maximally exploiting and taking benefits of their works. Now I want to look at the benefits of harmonization. What are some of the benefits that we stand to gain by harmonized copyright policy in Africa? One of the benefits is cross-border trade. We know that when we harmonize our laws, it becomes easy for somebody to move from Nigeria to Togo to Ghana, and trade in copyright and creative works becomes easier. So when we harmonize our laws, we enjoy cross-border trade, and cross-border trade will ultimately lead to the growth of the economy, lead to the growth of the creative industry, and eventually helps our different countries to make progress. Then another advantage we stand to gain is adequate protection of creative works. This, when we harmonize our laws, it becomes easier to protect creative works. It becomes easier to harness the benefits of creative works. It becomes easier for creators to make benefits out of their works. And once there's this growth in the creative industry, of course, it will lead to investment. It will attract investors from all over the world to come and invest in our creative industry. We know that such things are already beginning to happen. We know some of our movies are being put on foreign platforms, and they are paying our people, and our people are making money out of it. So this harmonization will enhance protection and ultimately enhance investment in the creative industry. Another advantage we stand to gain by this harmonization is that a collective action will also give us collective strength, or would enhance our strength in collective bargaining. We'll be able to bargain internationally. We'll be able to sell our products, our creative products, at better prices, which will ultimately make life better for our people, especially our creative. Then another thing we can stand to gain by this harmonization is enhanced cultural exchange. When there's harmonization, it becomes easier for us to exchange our culture across borders. Now, I want to quickly look at some existing framework or initiatives that are already in existence in the African region. We have the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization, that is ARIPO, which covers aspects of copyright in the English-speaking countries. That's a good regional initiative that is thriving. We also have the African Intellectual Property Organization, which harmonizes phone countries, that is OAPI. It harmonizes. This is also thriving. Then we have WIPO, which is an international organization, World Intellectual Property Organization, which engages African countries in the development of intellectual property. Now, I wouldn't finish talking about these existing frameworks without mentioning the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. This Free Trade Area Agreement is not just about trade in goods and services. It goes beyond trade in goods and services and goes and also includes intellectual property products. This a part of the aims of this African Continental Free Trade Agreement is that it seeks to harmonize IP standards. It also seeks to strengthen enforcement mechanisms in intellectual property. I know that Nigeria is a signatory to this African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and I know that quite a number of African countries are also signatories to this agreement. So these are some of the existing frameworks that are already in place, which we should interrogate further and work on so that we get better harmonization. Now, when we are talking about this harmonization, what are some of the key elements that we must look at, or key harmonization policies we must look at? One of them is uniform copyright protection. Uniform copyright protection terms. Under this, we'll be looking at the scope of copyright protection, the duration of copyright protection, ownership of copyright, and all that. These are important factors, key factors that we must look at as Africans, that we must look at having a standardized policy. Let it not be fragmented. Let it not be that Ghana has a different policy from Nigeria. We need to come together and have a standard, a common standard when it comes to copyright protection terms. Then other key things we must consider in this harmonization are exceptions and limitations. We must have a uniform requirement when it comes to exceptions. If we say libraries are going to be excluded from a strict copyright, did need to get authorization before using work, then it should be uniform. Educational institutions, it should be uniform. So we must have a uniform exceptions and limitations when it comes to copyright protection. Then we must also look at collective management organizations, and best practices in that area must be harmonized too across Africa. Then we must look at online protections, enforcement, and digital rights management. These are key areas where we must think of harmonizing, and also cooperation in enforcement mechanisms. There must be cooperation in enforcement mechanisms. Now, who are the key stakeholders when we're talking about this collaboration? We're looking at government, regional bodies such as ARIPO, OAPI, creative industry associations, international organizations such as WIPO, which I mentioned earlier, then the civil society. These are key collaborators or key stakeholders in this collaboration. Another thing I want to look at is considerations in the digital age. We know that the digital age or the digital space has become the widest space where copyright works are being exploited presently. You can be in Ghana or in Nigeria, create your works, and somebody somewhere in Czechoslovakia is having access to your work without stress, at their own time, at a time chosen by them, in the place chosen by them. So as a result of that, if we're talking about collaboration, we must look at online piracy, streaming challenges. Those are very key points that we must look into in considering collaboration, in considering harmonization. Then we must look at digital rights management technologies. What should be our policy when it comes to digital rights management? We must also look at opportunities for distribution of creative African, opportunities for distribution of African content works that have been created by African. We must look at opportunities for exploitation of such works. Now, going forward, I want to make some recommendations. What are some of the recommendations that will help us when it comes to this harmonization of our IP policies? One of the things we must do is to foster dialogue among African nations on intellectual property issues. We must foster dialogue, must keep talking. Thank God for this forum. We are talking, and we must continue talking. Let us keep talking until we achieve the harmonization which we seek to achieve. Then we must think about capacity building for copyright officers and judicial officers. We know that one of the things that make enforcement of copyright difficult, even in these days, is lack of capacity, even among copyright officers, even among judicial officers, there is lack of capacity. So we must think of building capacity. These people who are copyright officers must be equipped to be able to carry out their works, especially now that most of the activities of use of IP is going on the online space. These workers, these officers must be equipped to be able to do their work on the online space, follow what is going on the online space, and also be able to enforce on the online space. Then we must also try as much as possible to make sure that our laws align with international standards. In Nigeria, recently we changed our copyright, we amended our copyright law. Now we have the Copyright Act 2022, which is responsible for copyright in Nigeria, regulating copyright, administration of copyright. And this law has also picked up one of the best practices worldwide. I can say that Nigeria has a very good copyright law now. So we must make sure as much as possible that our laws align with international standards. Then we must promote awareness and respect for copyright. In our different regions, in our different countries, we must make sure that we promote awareness for copyright, respect for copyright, and awareness for copyright. Because a lot of times, the reason why people will infringe on some people's copyright, a lot of times we discover that the people who are infringing actually have no knowledge of what they are doing. Although quite a number of people have knowledge of what they are doing, but there are still some who do not understand, who do not, who are not aware of the protection copyright gives to the creatives, and the fact that their download and uploads could be an infringement of somebody's copyright law. So we must promote awareness. Then we must also encourage public-private partnership in everything. It must not just be about the government, but public-private partnership must be encouraged. Then again, we must also encourage national change in national laws. Every country should try as much as possible to update their IP laws. Because when we are talking about collaboration, you cannot successfully collaborate with somebody who's in 19th century copyright law that is not up to date, that does not have provisions online protection, online. Each and every one of us, our countries, should try as much as possible to update our copyright laws to make sure that our copyright laws are up to standard and have copied the world best practices. In conclusion, I would say that regional collaboration on copyright policy can unlock Africa's creative potential, foster economic growth, and preserve our cultural heritage. Going back to the story I started with, if you pick up a bunch of brooms, it is practically impossible for you to break it. But if you pick up just a stick, you can easily break it. In the same way, we must come together, harmonize our laws, collaborate with better potentials, and foster the economic growth, and at the same time, preserve our cultural heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Linda, for your robust presentation. It's very, very well encompassing. Thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation. So I'm going to call upon Mr. Champer for presentation for translation for our French speakers.
Okay, thank you, Chiamaka. Alors, je vais faire le résumé de la troisième présentation, la troisième et dernière présentation qui a été faite par Madame Linda Alpheus, qui est directrice de la Commission nigériane des droits d'auteur et qui a fait une présentation dont le thème était intitulé « Collaboration régionale et harmonisation du droit d'auteur en Afrique ». Alors, Madame Linda, à travers cette présentation, donc, a mis en évidence la nécessité pour l'Afrique de disposer d'une politique harmonisée du droit d'auteur. Elle a d'ailleurs souligné fort à propos l'importance stratégique des industries créatives et culturelles pour l'économie et évidemment l'identité culturelle du continent, tout en pointant un certain nombre de goulots d'étranglement telles que les disparités législatives, parce qu'il y a une fragmentation législative, contrairement à la propriété industrielle qui peut être harmonisée dans certains pays ou dans certaines régions. En matière de droit d'auteur, il n'y a pas encore cette harmonisation. Donc, elle a également relevé le piratage numérique avec le développement des nouvelles technologies, la faiblesse des capacités institutionnelles et un manque criard de sensibilisation à la fois des auteurs, donc des artistes, mais également de tous ceux qui sont censés de les accompagner. Elle est allée plus loin en présentant les avantages de l'harmonisation sur les 3 pans essentiels de la propriété intellectuelle, qui sont la protection, la commercialisation et donc la défense des intérêts des auteurs et de leurs droits. De façon plus spécifique, donc elle a évoqué la protection renforcée des œuvres, donc ce que l'harmonisation pourrait apporter, donc une protection renforcée des œuvres, une attractivité accrue pour les investissements, une facilitation du commerce transfrontalier, une préservation et une diffusion du patrimoine culturel, parce que l'Afrique a justement un regorge de richesses en matière de culture et que cela pourrait être justement un instrument pour le soft power à travers l'étranger. Elle a également rappelé fort à propos qu'il y a un certain nombre d'initiatives qui existent au niveau africain, qu'il faudrait mentionner, notamment des législations, on va dire, régionales harmonisées en matière de propriété intellectuelle, notamment au niveau de l'ARIPO, au niveau de l'OAPI, au niveau de l'OMPI, et évidemment la ZLECAf et l'Union africaine à travers l'agenda 2063, et que ces initiatives-là constituent une base solide, mais qu'il serait primordial, on va dire, d'aller vers une harmonisation qui va au-delà de on va dire, une harmonisation pas seulement sous-régionale, mais une harmonisation davantage régionale et donc continent, voire continentale, et que cette politique devrait intégrer des conditions de protection uniformes, des exceptions adaptées au niveau de l'éducation, au niveau de la recherche scientifique et d'améliorer encore une fois une protection en ligne parce qu'aujourd'hui, on se rend compte que la consommation des biens culturels se fait essentiellement en ligne, que ce soit à travers les e-books, les livres numériques, que ce soit à travers la consommation de la musique sur les plateformes de streaming telles que YouTube, Spotify, et j'en passe et des meilleurs. Donc, voilà un peu, en quelques mots, le résumé de la présentation de Madame Linda. Donc, si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas à les poser. Merci. I'm done, Chiamaka. You can proceed with the next point, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Jumper, for the translation. Now it's time for our question and answer segment. We are going to be taking some of the questions that have been dropped in the chat box and then in the Q&A session. We have one question for Mr. Jang, Mr. David Jang. I don't know if you're still here. We have a question for you. Someone is asking, we are in age of AI where deepfake prevails and people complaining to platforms where their deepfakes are hosted are not attended to because it doesn't violate the laws of the supposed social or virtual media platform. How can our African copyright laws address this?
Chiamaka, should I proceed directly with the translation or I translate the questions after the answer from David? What do you think?
You translate after we get the answers.
Okay.
Okay. Before we answer that question, we have a hand that is raised by Mr. Bemba Goye. So you can go on, sir.
Vous me recevez? Bonjour, est-ce que vous me recevez? Do you understand me? Hello?
We can hear you. Go on, sir.
OK, thank you. Alors donc, j'appelle du Gabon. I'm going to speak in French. Hein? I don't speak English very well. Alors, first question, donc à Monsieur Joseph, je voudrais savoir, est-ce que le droit d'auteur généré, est-ce que plutôt les œuvres générées par l'IA sont reconnues en tant que, ou sont protégées par le droit d'auteur? Est-ce que donc les œuvres générées par l'intelligence artificielle sont effectivement protégées par le droit d'auteur? Et si un auteur ou un créateur utilise l'intelligence artificielle pour sa création, comment faire pour détecter effectivement par exemple, qu'il y a une faute en termes de livres, par exemple? Première question. Deuxième question, elle est destinée à Monsieur David. Alors, comment fonctionne donc l'organisme de gestion collective de l'OMPI? Est-ce que les auteurs peuvent déposer leurs œuvres là-bas ou comment ce mécanisme est mis en œuvre? Et j'aimerais terminer par une réaction simplement pour dire qu'on a au Gabon un organisme de gestion du droit de gestion du droit collectif, mais donc le bureau gabonais des droits d'auteur, qui est une administration des pouvoirs publics, sauf que le problème, c'est le fonctionnement. Nos marchés sont des véritables salles de spectacle en plein air. Nos carrefours également. Les œuvres des auteurs sont grandement utilisées en termes de musique, entre autres. Malheureusement, on ne sait pas comment on fait pour pouvoir juguler ça. Donc, on a un bureau gabonais des droits d'auteur, mais le problème, c'est le fonctionnement. Ils n'ont pas de moyens d'action. Merci.
Okay, Mr. John, please, can you help us with translation?
Sorry, I had a problem, an issue with my connection, so I didn't grasp everything that was asked. So maybe I will, if you have enough time, I will ask him to repeat just the second and third questions, and I will proceed directly with the translation. I really apologize for the inconvenience.
Okay, please, Mr. Benbagwe, I don't know if you can help us repeat short summary. Please help me ask. You can tell him to repeat.
OK. Donc, première question. Oui. L'intelligence artificielle, les œuvres gérées par l'intelligence artificielle, est-ce qu'elles sont protégées par le droit d'auteur? Est-ce qu'elles bénéficient de texte? Et comment faire pour détecter qu'il y a une fraude, par exemple? Un créateur qui utilise l'intelligence artificielle pour créer, comment faire effectivement pour détecter qu'il n'est pas vraiment l'auteur, que c'est plutôt l'intelligence artificielle qui a créé son œuvre? Ça. Et puis l'autre, c'était oui. Et donc, la deuxième question, c'était relatif à l'organisme de gestion collective, je crois, administré par l'OMPI, quelque chose comme ça, là. Je peux avoir entendu ça. C'est savoir comment fonctionne cet organisme. Est-ce que les auteurs peuvent déposer leurs œuvres, faire protéger leurs œuvres par cette administration ou par cette institution? Et puis, la dernière, c'était un peu relatif au fonctionnement de nos bureaux de droits d'auteur qui existent réellement, mais c'est des coquilles vides et ont du mal à fonctionner en termes d'opérationnalisation. Donc, c'est un peu ça la préoccupation. Il n'y a pas de moyens d'action pour savoir quelle œuvre a été utilisée ici et là, pendant quelle durée.
Oui, excusez-moi, vous disiez que donc, les organismes de gestion collective sont des coquilles vides et puis vous pouvez...
Voilà. Elles ont du mal à fonctionner. Elles n'ont pas de moyens. Par exemple, comment savoir qu'une va être utilisée pendant combien de temps? Elles n'ont pas ces outils pour pouvoir le faire. Pour aller collecter effectivement également les royalties auprès des utilisateurs, là encore, il y a problème. Conclusion, ben, on a des marchés qui sont des véritables salles de spectacle à ciel ouvert, donc les œuvres sont utilisées. Même dans les cybercafés, les gens vont pour faire pirater, pour faire des copies des œuvres en termes de musique, et donc c'est vraiment un gros problème. Merci.
OK. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bemba-Goye. So, Chamaka, I translate all the questions that were asked. Hello?
You can go on, sir.
Okay. So the first question Mr. Bemba-Goye asked was he wanted to know how are protected the works which are generated by the AI. Are there any legal framework related to the protection of the AI generated work? That were the first questions, and the prolong of its questions was to know, how do you detect deepfake? Are there any reliable tools to detect deepfake? And if there is any reliable tools, what can be done on institutional levels to prevent the theft, the theft and the violations of copyright by the artificial intelligence? So that was his first questions. The second questions was related to, I think it was from what are the conditions to protect copyrighted work there? Are there any conditions of admissions? He wants to know the details about this platform. And third, he made an observations. He noted that in most African work, included Gabon, because he's Gabonese, there are a lot of CMO, but unfortunately they don't work like they should do because they don't have enough funds, or they are not equipped to really do their work of let's say management of the copyright. So he wanted to know what solutions can be done concretely in the field for empowering those CMO. So that was the three questions he asked.
Okay. Thank you very much. Please, can you mute your mic? Okay. So, Mr. David, can you please answer the questions that we have been asked? I think he asked a question on AI and deepfakes. How can they be detected? And then he also asked CMOs in Gabon. Some of them are not working. So I don't know if you can just give us a rundown and answer to the question. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And please, he wanted to know. He also wanted to know if there is a legal framework related to works generated by AI. Are they protected? If yes, what is the legal framework that's regulated?
Okay, thank you very much. Those are very, very, very good questions. Now, if you look at, I like the last presenter, that presented, and I think she has touched on some very important points. One is we definitely need to amend our laws, because also, we talk of harmonization, but if our laws are still not factoring these new realities, it's going to be difficult to protect them. So one aspect that she mentioned that is very integral, and if we all go back with it, we can make impact in our various countries. How do we ensure that we amend our laws to include new realities of that is happening in the creative industry? So the issue of AI is one of them. All these things, deep stakes, and all these form of AIs that are, infringing on people's copyright. We have to amend our copyright laws to factor AI, and also amend our regional laws to affect to address these issues. Once we do that, then enforcement comes into play, because once these laws talk about it and how to address it, then enforcement comes to play. The other aspect is the issue of the WIPO Connect. Yes, countries can have access to the WIPO Connect. And, currently, I believe there are some, I don't want to go into it, but there's some countries already that are on the WIPO Connect. There's some who are now working to become part of the WIPO Connect, which is a platform that is open to WIPO member states. So, and I believe Gabon is a member state of WIPO. So you can liaise with your IP office to start talking to WIPO on this, and then this is one way in which they can be helped. And some of us have been consultants for WIPO on different projects. and we're very much happy to assist where we can to ensure that, not only the CMOs and the IP officers can do their work properly, but also to ensure that the creators benefit from the works that have been created. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jumper, please can you help us with translation of the answer to the question?
D'accord. Alors, Monsieur Bembagoye, en ce qui concerne la première question qui vous a été posée, donc Monsieur David Jeng a remarqué qu'il n'existe pas encore, en tout cas au niveau africain, une législation qui regarde le droit d'auteur. Donc, les œuvres qui sont générées par le droit d'auteur ne sont pas protégées en l'état des différentes législations. Dire que la défense, si vous voulez, des droits qui sont des œuvres qui sont piratées par l'intelligence artificielle ne sont pas également encadrées par les législations sur le plan local. Et ça, c'est un problème qu'il a mentionné et qu'il faudrait justement adapter les législations locales et produire une réponse harmonisée pour que l'Afrique ne soit pas derrière finalement cette révolution qui a apporté beaucoup de services, mais également qui est un danger pour, on va dire, la sauvegarde des industries culturelles et créatives. Donc, c'est un appel, il fait un appel justement global pour qu'il y ait une législation qui puisse exister à ce niveau. En ce qui concerne la plateforme de l'OMPIY pour Connect dont il a mentionné, en fait, ce n'est pas un organisme de gestion collective. C'est, si vous voulez, une plateforme qui met en relation les différents acteurs des industries créatives et culturelles, notamment les organismes de gestion collective, pour qu'elles puissent partager entre elles les bonnes pratiques et que ces bonnes pratiques-là puissent maintenant découler ou ruisseler vers les membres vers les auteurs et autres. Donc, WIPO ne se substitue pas, donc l'OMPI, pardon, ne se substitue pas aux organismes de gestion collective. Elle offre juste une plateforme d'échange pour que ces différents acteurs-là puissent justement avoir les meilleures pratiques, les pratiques qui sont internationales, s'inspirer des autres pratiques et donc pouvoir améliorer leur gestion de cette façon-là. Et donc, pour le dernier élément, la dernière question, effectivement, il dit que c'est un sujet assez sensible, celui des organismes de gestion collective qui fonctionnent un peu de façon très... enfin, qui ne sont que des OGC de nom. Et il dit que, bon, la libéralisation, la privatisation, pour lui, semble être une solution qui permet de pallier à ce problème-là et qu'il faudrait justement amener et développer des offres de formation, de renforcement des capacités à la fois auprès des dirigeants des organisations, des organismes de gestion collective, mais également auprès des artistes qui sont membres de ces OGC-là. Donc, je ne sais pas si la réponse vous a satisfait ou si vous avez compris un peu ce que je viens de dire.
Oui, merci. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jumper. Thank you very much for the translation. Miss Linda, you have a question here. The question says, in achieving harmonization and avoiding fragmentation, do you think adopting a unitary compulsory copyright registration system across the Benin Convention member states could be great recommendation? Mr. Jumper, if you can translate.
Hear me, please. Okay. I should wait for the translation.
Yes, please. Some issues with connections, so I didn't get you very well.
The question is harmonization and avoiding fragmentation. Do you think adopting a unitary compulsory registration system across the convention member system could be a great recommendation?
Okay. Alors, la question qui a été posée à Madame Linda Afeyu, c'était de savoir si l'une des recommandations qu'elle a proposées est d'avoir un système harmonisé harmonisé, un système africain harmonisé en matière de droits d'auteur, justement pour lutter contre un certain nombre de problématiques qu'elle a évoquées de long en large durant sa présentation. Et donc, la question était de savoir si, est-ce qu'à travers la Convention de Berne, qui est déjà, si vous voulez, un cadre normatif minimal en matière de droits d'auteur, si la Convention de Berne pouvait être une réponse assez satisfaisante justement à ce besoin d'harmonisation-là pour l'Afrique. Est-ce que la Convention telle qu'elle existe en l'état, de l'Éguilata, permet justement de faciliter l'harmonisation du droit d'auteur à un niveau continental? Merci. Thank you. You can go on, Mrs. Linda, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that should be a step in this direction. Although you don't need to register your copyright work before you can enjoy copyright protection, you enjoy copyright protection as soon as you have created a work and you have put it in a medium from which it may be perceived. But I think it might be necessary for us to adopt a uniform registration system, because the registration system comes with a lot of advantages. So it might just be a step in the right direction that we adopt a uniform registration system for Africa.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, go on, Mr. Joffe.
Donc, Madame Linda a mentionné que déjà pour pouvoir prétendre à la protection par le droit d'auteur, il faut remplir un certain nombre de conditions, notamment l'originalité et la matérialisation. Et elle a encore encouragé justement l'harmonisation des législations en matière de droit d'auteur, parce que le monde est de plus en plus globalisé. La culture s'exporte facilement, et donc en ayant un cadre légal, un cadre harmonisé du droit d'auteur, on permettrait justement à ces auteurs-là de pouvoir bénéficier d'une protection qui est aussi harmonisée, qui est beaucoup plus simple et qui éviterait beaucoup de tracasseries. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the translation. We have a hand up, Mr. I believe it's Mr. Emis Saluba. I hope I pronounce this correctly. You can ask your question. Can you hear us? We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Advocate Zalu. Yes, Advocate Zalu from South Africa. Thank you to the presenters. Let me start off with the previous question. I think one of the things, and I would like the presenters to respond to the question I'm asking because it cuts across. And I've actually thanked them for the presentation. However, talking without structural reforms is a challenge. Let me start off by saying we cannot have a uniform system without uniform protocols. Now, I want us to go to the protocol on IP, which guides Africa in terms of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. The first question one is going to ask is whether that protocol enables the harmonization that you're talking about. That's why. And secondly, when we're saying we want to update our copyright legislation, or broadly our IP, the question is what do we use as a benchmark? Because where I stand, the multilateral agreements cannot take us where we want to because they are framed in a different paradigm. We need an Africa dialogue on where we want to take IP, and in this case, is copyright. And looking at the creative industries, which I play as an IP lawyer, you're finding a lot of challenges our young creators are experiencing, which unfortunately the discussion discussion does not even address them. The link between a creator and the person who actually directs that, and the impact thereof on the quality of life of the creator, which is a function of the legislation that prevails in that jurisdiction. And so, my question then to my learned friends, allow me to refer to you like that. If we are to harmonize copyright, which is territorial in nature, where do we start? We've got regional arrangements. Now, in addition to that, we have an African arrangement. In addition to that, we have an AUAI arrangement. But guess what? The approach of all the states of Africa to AI is different because it's framed by what you see as the best multilateral form across the globe, where the North and the South have different perceptions. So how do you see harmonization within the copyright specifically and within the creative industries where a lot of infringement is taking place? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. David, I don't know if you can address the question, and then we'll get a translation of the question and the answer from Mr. Jean-Paul. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much from my learned sister. You've raised a very good question, and I'll just plead on my brother's son to just allow me to just say things based on my perspective and not be very diplomatic about it. The reality is that in most cases we don't have the political will. I think this is the biggest challenge to what you're saying today. Look at it. We talk of the AFCFTA, Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, three very big economies and very integral players in the regional bloc. They are neither members of ARPO nor OAP. And we still talk about the IP protocol. Yes, it's always good and nice in paper. But you realize that when we go back to our countries, we look at our countries from the lens of our countries, not from a continental lens. And we know that IP is business, IP is money, and IP is political. And once the political will is there, it will just on paper. Because it takes a lot to open your borders. It takes a lot to share your revenue. It takes a lot seeing your money that could belong to your people just go in other hands. So I think the biggest challenge we have to the issue that you mentioned in your question is ensuring that politicians are given
sorry. Yeah.
Okay, it's okay. I think the biggest issue to address that is by ensuring that there's a political will and politicians are holding the people who are in these offices accountable. The politicians are ensuring that what they sign when they come back, they measure it through it. How much have we been collected? Where has our products gone? How people benefited from African IPs? How many enforcements, how many infringements have we enforced? Once we start talking about that, honestly, I believe that your questions will not only be addressed, but we will see the impact of it. I hope this answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Mr. Jompe, I don't know if you caught what he said and then translate as much as you can. Thank you.
Ok, thank you. Alors, la question qui a été posée donc, à M. David était de savoir, vu que tout le monde a préconisé justement une harmonisation de des systèmes de propriété intellectuelle en Afrique. Donc, par où commence-t-on? Donc, quelle est finalement la méthodologie qu'on devrait adopter pour arriver justement à ce système harmonisé? Et puis, elle a souligné une autre préoccupation, qui est celle de savoir qu'effectivement, on parle beaucoup d'intelligence artificielle, et que finalement, l'intelligence artificielle, elle est développée en majorité au niveau des grandes puissances occidentales, et que c'est eux, donc, ces puissances-là, qui font, si vous voulez, l'appui, le vote en matière de législation concernant l'intelligence artificielle. Et donc, il faudrait savoir si véritablement l'Afrique a la possibilité de pouvoir donc, avoir un mot, être invité à la table de négociation et pouvoir avoir une marge de manœuvre suffisante pour pouvoir donc arriver à ce système harmonisé. Et donc, la réponse qui a été apportée par David Cheng, c'est que effectivement tout commence d'abord par une volonté politique. C'est-à-dire qu'il a relevé d'ailleurs que au niveau régional, de façon au niveau sous-régional, on a des systèmes de propriété intellectuelle. On a au niveau de l'OAI, on a au niveau de l'ARGO, on a un protocole de la propriété intellectuelle au niveau de la ZECAF. Donc, il y a déjà, si vous voulez, des initiatives qui sont prises peut-être à des échelles un peu moindres. Mais le tout, c'est que les hommes politiques devraient se mettre ensemble, il devrait y avoir un discours, un dialogue véritablement pour essayer d'harmoniser ces différentes branches régionales ou sous-régionales de la propriété intellectuelle, tout en tenant compte des réalités et des contextes qui sont différents, en trouvant un dénominateur commun et en ayant un protocole qui puisse être suffisamment représentatif du besoin qui est formulé par les acteurs, les auteurs, pardon, les artistes, tous ceux qui sont impliqués dans les industries créatives. Donc, en gros, c'est d'abord une volonté politique, tout doit être une volonté politique pour pouvoir construire une architecture de la propriété intellectuelle qui puisse être commune. And please, Tamaka, allow me, if you have enough time, allow me to quickly translate the question in French in the chat, because it is the only question in French, so I can translate.
Yes, Mr. Go ahead.
Actually, they have two questions from the same person. But I will try to
yes, I have an opportunity. I think we can take a question from the chat and then maybe find an answer. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the question in the chat is from Miss Noel from Cameroon. She's a lawyer in the Cameroonian bar, registered in Cameroonian bar. So she made an observation. She noticed that in most African countries there is a problem to the access of internet, and she said that it is interesting it's always very interesting to mention that all the stakeholders should adapt to the internet, the digital ages, to adopt new technologies, but we still have a problem to internet access. So how can CMOs can embrace those technologies if the basic input is not resolved, which is the access to internet, and what solutions can so the presenters can put on the table to solve this fundamental problem. The other question she mentioned, which is into the same vein, is related to the piracy. She said that piracy is not products of poverty. It's, according to her, cultural goods are relatively expensive. They are expensive not because they are not worth it, they are not worth the price, but because the overall African population is very poor. It cannot always afford to purchase some CDs or some books. So piracy is one of the access to democratize this access to the common to the cultural goods. So she said she wants to know your inputs, your insight about this. How can we fight piracies if we cannot solve the basic problem, which is the poverty and the extreme fragile conditions in which the population is living conditions in Africa. So that's the two questions she asked. Anybody who wants to answer from the presenters can go on.
Okay. I don't know if Mr. Joseph is here. If he can take the answer to the question, and you can answer the question. If not, Miss Linda or Mr. David, anyone is available.
All right.
So, okay. Let me say something on the question. Okay, please let me say something on the question that has been asked. The first one is talking about lack of internet access in most African countries. I know one of our speakers has already mentioned political will. So I think government should try and do something to make sure that there is access, because all over the world, working on the online space is just the norm. It has come to be. So government should do something to try and make access to internet easier, or make the internet more accessible to their citizens. Then talking about poverty being a reason for piracy, I don't think that should be allowed, please. It's not an excuse. People will always find reasons to do the wrong thing. If you can afford to buy the cheaper one, then you can, because it is it's just like saying you buy a stolen good at a cheaper price. So because you are poor, you have to buy something that is stolen because you're going to get it at a cheaper price. I don't think that is right. When we work ourselves, we work on our minds, we know that it is not good to steal. So there shouldn't be any excuse. Piracy is stealing. It kills creativity. It's stealing from those who have it. So please let us not use piracy as use poverty as an excuse for piracy. That is not acceptable.
Okay, please. I think we need to translate this answer first before we can go on with any other person that has something else to say. So, but please, can you help us with the translation for the answer?
Ok. Alors, donc, à la question de maître, je ne sais pas si elle est avec nous encore, de maître Pauline Noël, qui est expert en propriété intellectuelle. Donc, Madame Linda a apporté des réponses par notre question. La première, donc, était celle relative, on va dire, à la scène Internet. Elle dit que, encore une fois, tout dépend d'une volonté politique. C'est-à-dire que les gouvernements devraient faire pression auprès des fournisseurs d'Internet pour que les infrastructures puissent suivre, mais que nous ne pouvons pas utiliser la faiblesse des infrastructures pour justifier le retard en matière de, on va dire, d'adoption technologique que nous avons. La technologie, elle évolue et elle est fondamentale et cruciale que nous y arriverons. Donc, vraiment, c'est un appel, en fait, qu'elle émet au gouvernement de faire en sorte d'améliorer les infrastructures d'accès à Internet pour que nous puissions combler le retard et que même dans les zones rurales, personne ne puisse être laissé de côté. Quant à la deuxième question, elle souligne que effectivement, le piratage ne doit pas être vu comme une excuse, parce que le piratage, c'est un cancer, si on veut dire, ça qui gangrène le copyright, les droits d'auteur, les auteurs n'arrivent pas à vivre de leur art. Et que de toute façon, il faudrait, elle a fait une analogie qui est selon elle pertinente, c'est que le piratage, c'est du vol. C'est-à-dire que de la même façon qu'une personne qui est pauvre ne volerait pas, par exemple, une marchandise dans les shops du boutiquier du coin, parce que voilà, il sait que c'est du vol, on devrait avoir la même logique. Et donc, elle considère que voilà, il faudrait faire sensibiliser. C'est la première démarche pour pouvoir combattre le piratage. Il faut d'abord commencer par la sensibilisation de masse et faire comprendre au peuple que les artistes aussi vivent de leur art et que c'est en achetant, en consommant de façon équitable, de façon juste leurs produits que l'on peut justement laisser à pouvoir aussi vivre de leur art et nourrir, on va dire, leur ventre et leur famille. Donc, je ne sais pas si elle résoudre, répondre à vos questions. Donc, voilà. OK, Chiamaka, you can go on.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for translation. Mr. David, you wanted to say something, I guess?
Yes.
Please,
Yes.
can you go?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy that the first question has been answered. But in my experience, working across Africa in the most rural area, poorer people are more honest than the richer people. You see. So it's not an excuse to infringe on anyone's copyright. Then the other aspect is today you're talking of internet access. Internet access in Africa is about 34%, 38% of Africans have access to internet. But to me, what is more critical than internet is electricity. 43% of Africans still as now don't have access to electricity. Without electricity, you cannot have access to internet. Today, without physical infrastructure, you can't have access to digital infrastructure. Africa in general has been, affected by, poor road networks, even poor addressing systems, across Africa. Same with electricity and same with internet. Almost 9 out of 10 countries with the highest cost of internet and data, they're in Africa. So this shows you that we have to be very innovative, and I like what the All IP Summit is doing. It's pouring a discussion, it's triggering a discussion to address the most critical issues that we are facing within IP systems as a continent. And countries and governments have to ensure that, and Africans also have to ensure that we develop a very innovative mindset in addressing issues. Today, Africa doesn't have a problem of sunlight. Why should we have access to poor internet, poor electricity? Because we have the sunlight, we have the river, we have the land space, we have the youthful population. Why should we be poor? I just take Nigeria, for example, which is part of the OPEC countries. Nigeria, up till today, there are places in Nigeria, even within Abuja, that electricity still goes off a couple of times. It's not available throughout, the day. So I think also we should address the root causes of some of these infrastructure challenges, which we all know that is the elephant in the room, that is, corruption, that is inefficiency of our governments. But what I want to do as an individual and as Africans is, can we look inwards to see how can we address this issue? And the answer to that is innovation. The answer to that is innovation, and innovation cannot take place without the protection of IP. So we have to ensure that we as young people, we as Africans, we are in the middle of the discussions, and we're also in the middle of creating the innovations that will address the biggest problems that Africa is facing, whether it is internet, whether it is electricity, whether it is road network, or whether it is addressing system or any other technology. Thank you very much. Thank you to the All IP Summit. It's been a pleasure coming here and being part of the discussions. And hopefully we will also join you in November. And we're looking forward to further deeper discussions and collaborations on the issue of supporting IP and supporting shaping the IP regimes in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jang. We appreciate your contribution. Mr. Jean-Pierre, I don't know how much you got, if you can translate to French. Thank you.
Thank you, Monsieur Jeng s'est donc inscrit dans la même lancée que Madame Linda, et a souligné effectivement qu'il faudrait une volonté politique justement pour résoudre les problèmes que rencontrent les Africains de façon générale, pas seulement à l'accès à l'Internet, mais également à l'électricité. Et il a souligné que pour pouvoir contourner ces problèmes-là, il faudrait que les Africains puissent faire preuve de davantage d'innovation et que nous avons des solutions, du moins nous avons des ressources naturelles nous avons le pétrole, nous avons le solaire, et que nous pouvons, à partir de, on va dire, des richesses naturelles qui nous ont été données gracieusement par Dieu, donc de façon, nous devons donc pouvoir les transformer l'existant pour pouvoir pallier à ces problèmes-là que nous rencontrons et qui, justement, ne permettent pas de construire, de bâtir un développement qui puisse être durable. Donc, pour lui, la solution pour aller vers la durabilité, c'est donc d'être innovant. Et puis, en ce qui concerne la pauvreté, donc qui pourrait être une cause du piratage, il a souligné que de par son expérience de travail dans les zones rurales, il a souvent eu affaire à beaucoup de personnes, justement, qui vivent dans des conditions très difficiles, mais qui respectent la propriété des autres, y compris la propriété intellectuelle, que c'est très souvent les personnes qui sont donc riches, qui sont nantis, qui sont aisés, qui sont parfois les moins dotés de scrupules. Donc, voilà, qu'il aimerait relativiser cette observation qui a été faite et qu'une fois de plus, tout part de la sensibilité. Comprendre à la population, faire comprendre et même aux décideurs que le piratage tue la créativité, tue l'art et ne permet pas aux artistes de pouvoir nourrir leur homme. Et donc, quand chacun comprendra que pirater, c'est voler, pirater, c'est porter préjudice à tout un écosystème de la culture, alors on fera un grand pas vers ou du moins, pas vers la suppression du piratage, mais en tout cas vers la réduction de ses effets les plus pervers. Okay, thank you, Chiamaka. I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jean-Pierre. Okay.
Hi, I may have to drop off very soon. I just wanted to react to this last questions before I join another meeting. You know, the issue with regards to access to internet in Africa. You know, first of all, let's just set this record straight. It's not only about use of digital works in Africa, it's about the global use of it. So you might be a creator from Africa, but your works may be used out of Africa. And we need to establish, you know, CMOs that are having that capability to not only monitor use of works on the continent, but beyond the continent, so that we create, you know, avenues for the creator to make more income out of their creations. And then secondly, the fact that poverty fuels piracy. That is not an excuse to say. When you look at my presentation, I initially hinted that CMOs create that balancing act. Okay, so it looks at both compensation to the right holder as well as access to the public for the public good. So, for instance, when you look at the text and image sector where I operate, you go to a university, you know, they give the course outlines to students with about 10 books on the course outline. Poverty might naturally lead to piracy in this regard, but where there is collective licensing, in that students are allowed to make copies of excerpts of the book and use it to further their education by paying a token fee, then in that way we are trying to solve that problem. So it's not always about, you know, hiding behind the fact that poverty would then give you that guarantee to copy somebody's work arbitrarily. You know, with the existence of collective management organizations, we try to make, I mean, when you look at the music space too, FM stations get access to play music of artists by paying a token fee to the right holder. That way, a lot of people get access to enjoy the music. So, you know, the argument that poverty fuels piracy may not hold entirely. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to join this webinar event. You learned a lot, and hope to join similar ones that you organize. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph. It's nice to have you here. Thank you for giving us your time. Mr. Jean-Pierre, I don't know how much you can translate, but please, just as much as you got, just help us translate. Thank you.
Ok. Alors, donc, le dernier intervenant a voulu donc réagir toujours à la problématique qui a été posée, donc à la fois celle de l'accès à Internet et puis celle de la pauvreté qui serait une cause donc du piratage. Donc, à la première préoccupation qui a été exprimée, donc celle de l'accès à Internet. Il a souligné qu'effectivement, il s'inscrit aussi dans la même lancée, dans la même lignée que les deux autres intervenants, les deux autres speakers, et que même s'il reconnaît les difficultés, évidemment, d'accès à Internet qui sont prégnants, de sa perspective de directeur d'un OGC, d'un organisme de gestion collective, il pense que la faiblesse de l'accès Internet, des infrastructures Internet ne devrait pas empêcher justement les organismes de gestion collective, si vous voulez, d'être au fait de nouvelles méthodes de gestion. Parce que de toute façon, il faudrait, si vous voulez, anticiper le retard technologique, le retard en matière d'infrastructure, en ayant au moins déjà les connaissances nécessaires qui permettront à ces organismes de fonctionner selon les standards. Et il y a un fait, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, la plupart donc enfin pas la plupart, mais en tout cas la musique, les biens culturels se consomment en ligne. Et donc, comment faire en sorte pour que cette consommation-là puisse se faire de telle façon à rémunérer de façon équitable les auteurs. Donc, les organismes de gestion collective devraient être justement renforcer et connaître donc ces nouvelles pratiques-là pour que le digital ne soit pas justement un terrain de jeu sur lequel ils partent perdants parce qu'ils ne sont pas suffisamment outillés. Ça, c'était le premier élément. Le second élément donc qui a trait à la pauvreté, c'est qu'il note que justement le travail des organismes de gestion collective n'est pas seulement de défendre les intérêts des artistes ou des créateurs, mais également de trouver un équilibre entre l'accès, la large diffusion des biens culturels et et donc la défense et la protection, si vous voulez, de ces créateurs-là, notamment sur le plan pécuniaire. Et il a rappelé qu'il y a un certain nombre d'exemples qui ont été, de mécanismes qui ont été payés, des exceptions qui ont été mises sur pied, qu'il y a des licences collectives qui sont accordées, par exemple, dans le domaine de l'éducation, où il y a un accès préférentiel, des tarifs préférentiels qui sont accordés, par exemple, à des établissements pour que les livres puissent être copiés ou du moins puissent être achetés afin d'être diffusés largement auprès des élèves, mais que même sur le plan au niveau de la musique également, par exemple les radios, les restaurants, les boîtes de nuit, peuvent avoir accès justement à des licences préférentielles qui leur permettent de diffuser la musique de façon, générale auprès de la population et qui n'a donc pas besoin de payer, par exemple, pour écouter un album ou une chanson de Beyoncé. Vous suivez, par exemple, votre radio et puis vous avez accès à à sa musique, à sa production culturelle. Donc, il y a des mécanismes qui existent justement pour permettre cette large diffusion-là, mais que la pauvreté ne devrait pas être une excuse pour pouvoir pirater un bien culturel. Merci, Tiamaka. Tu peux continuer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jean-Pierre.
I will not translate the last part.
Yeah, we've had an insightful webinar, and it's time for us to have our closing remarks. And then we call on Mr. Benga for the closing remark. Thank you, everyone who have stayed up to this point, and then those that have contributed and asked questions. We thank our speakers for their presentations. Over to you, Mr. Benga.
Thank you to all our brilliant presenters. Thank you, Jim Perry, for the interpretation. And I know we will all agree that it has been an insightful session, that we we've had so far on this webinar. From the insightful speech and practical examples of Joseph, giving us case studies of Copy Ghana, which he also highlighted the importance of harmonizing data and digital licensing platforms. This is critical even as you move on as Africans. I will also remember that David reminded us of the strength of our copyright frameworks, which lies in our legislation. And I know that some of us here, we are part of legislators in our different countries. I hope we will take this home to be able to strengthen our copyright legislations across the continent, which will be able to help us to capture more data and capture more remuneration even for our works as Africans, not just in the continent, but across the globe. Ms. Linda reminded us the importance of unity, even as a continent. Unity when it comes to our laws to be harmonized, unity when it comes to working together and collaborating amongst ourselves, not just looking from the lens of our countries alone, but to ensure that we forge ahead the African project, we promote further the African project. And one important protocol, which was mentioned by the three presenters, is the African Continental Free Trade Area. That is a critical and important tool that we need to all harness to ensure that we, as Africans, collaborate on trading amongst ourselves, and the remuneration from our copyright and generally IP rights, IP works that is being produced in the continent. In conclusion, I would like to invite you to be part of the 6th All Africa IP Summit that will be coming up between 12th and 14th November this year in Dakar, Senegal. If you are here to register, the registration link was shared during this event, and you can also visit our website. It will be a platform where you can also exhibit your product and services to a global audience, and it will be a good platform for collaboration amongst ourselves and promoting the cause of Africa, ensuring that the intellectual property system works for the benefit of Africa. Once again, I want to thank you all, our participants, our facilitators and our speakers, and the moderators. And Jean-Pierre, thank you so much for the interpretation. At this point, I would like to say thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Over to you, Chiamaka.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being present up to now. So we want everyone to turn on your camera so that we'll get a snapshot of today's webinar. Please turn on those in the technical department to take a snapshot of people present. Thank you very much. We've gotten that. Thank you. Lovely day. It was nice having you present. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, guys. See you in November.
Thank you so much. Bye.
See you all in November.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.